Stay indoors is the message from the Florida Emergency Management Director to people who did not leave the state ahead of Hurricane Ian's impact. This morning, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis told reporters he expects millions of people to lose power across the state. Hurricane Ian hasn't made landfall yet, but has already caused flooding and damage and whipped up high winds. Just look at the planes that are flipped over here. Cancellations, closures by the thousands piling up across the country and the Florida Peninsula specifically. FEMA dispatching 700 workers to the state, providing relief where needed.
And major Hurricane Ian is close to making landfall in Florida. Meteorologist Aimee Wilmoth is here with a look at where Ian is right now and when we could start to feel impacts here. Aimee.
The eyewall already making landfall. We're getting video now of Sanibel, Florida underwater, the water up to the mailboxes there. And also I have a report from Naples, Florida. One of the water gauges there at record height with 4.5 foot levels there. So already huge impacts here. It's a Category 4 hurricane with that the eye wall starting to make landfall. It hasn't made landfall yet, but the eye wall is just starting to impact land on Florida. Winds are at 155 miles per hour right now, moving to the northeast at about 9 miles per hour. This is a new track from the National Hurricane Center. Category 3 hurricane later this evening. It likely makes landfall here in the next few hours. We'll be monitoring that carefully. And then a tropical storm by Friday morning in the Atlantic. All the models in great agreement that it goes back in the Atlantic and then it moves back on shore along the North Carolina, South Carolina coast as we get into Friday afternoon, Friday evening, and then weakening to a remnant low by Sunday morning. So that's the latest track. I do have an update on the alerts. All of Florida, almost all of Florida under some kind of alert, but what is new is now parts of the South Carolina coast under a hurricane watch. And that's because the system is moving a little bit faster. The winds will stay stronger a little bit longer. And so we're thinking they could maybe have some hurricane wind gusts along the southern coast of South Carolina. The model plot's in great agreement, taking it out back into the Atlantic Thursday and then moving it back on shore Friday and into western North Carolina as we get into Sunday. Let's walk you through Futurecast. I want to show you when the rain gets here Friday. Friday morning, the morning commute looks wet, especially for the southern half of the viewing area. Friday at lunchtime, it's raining. In the evening, it's going to be a mess for the commute. And this rain is going to continue overnight Friday and into a good part of Saturday. So we do have the potential for some flooding here along in parts of our viewing area, some isolated spots of flooding with 3 to maybe 5 inches of rain. So again, here's another look at Hurricane Ian, that eye wall just starting to make landfall here in Florida, a devastating storm down there.
And Aimee, here in the WRAL Live Center, we're seeing the first impacts Hurricane Ian is having on the Tampa Bay area. Take a look at these pictures posted to Twitter. This is along Bayshore Boulevard in Tampa. You can see the energy from Hurricane Ian pushing the Tampa Bay waters out, including the Hillsborough River. And this is the storm surge that forecasters and city leaders are concerned about, because once all that water goes out, it has to come back in at some point. And once that happens, this water is going to just gush all over this seawall. So, Aimee, I want to bring you back in here. And what is the signs behind these great pictures we're seeing out of Tampa?
It's interesting because we saw this with Hurricane Michael, the exact same pictures at Tampa Bay. And what happens is it all depends on the wind direction, right? So this is moving to the north and east. Well, here is Tampa right now. The winds right now are out of the northeast. So it's pulling all of that water out into the ocean. And that's why it is basically dry here in the Tampa Bay region. Now, south of that, that's where things are really bad right now. You have this wind coming out of the south and west, driving in the wind to areas like Naples, like Fort Myers, and that's where we expect the really, really strong wind storm surge, perhaps up to 18 feet is what the National Hurricane Center is saying. So things aren't bad here in Tampa as far as the storm surge with that water being pulled out into the ocean, much worse just south of Tampa. Now, some of that water is going to move back in, but the storm surge here, nowhere near as bad as the storm surge down here, where it could get up to 18 feet in the next several hours.
Now, as the storm closes in on Florida, Governor Roy Cooper is watching the forecast closely to keep North Carolinians safe. WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief Lora Lavigne caught up with him less than an hour ago to ask him about his plan moving forward. She joins us now live with what he had to say. Laura.
Jeff, speaking to us after a groundbreaking event here in Raleigh today, Cooper said he plans to issue a state of emergency this afternoon so that farmers can move farm equipment out of areas that are prone to flooding. The state emergency response team is also planning to move equipment around the state to prepare for possible use depending on how Ian continues to evolve as it moves up from Florida. Cooper said the plan right now is to activate the Emergency Operations Center sometime tomorrow as the storm begins to move into North Carolina. He said it's a big storm that will bring a lot of rain, and they are continuing to track it.
That is the most serious concern that we have, is flooding, and particularly the more west it moves, we know that the potential for landslides in the mountains and flooding in the mountains is always a real thing. And we know from Tropical Storm Fred just a number of months ago the devastation that it can cause.
Cooper said the good thing is that we don't have a lot of wet ground in the state. Some areas are actually in drought right now. So he says hopefully the risk of really bad flooding will be minimized. But he said people should still be prepared. Make sure you have an emergency kit and have a plan just in case you need to evacuate. And of course, stay tuned and keep watching us. Thank you.
No doubt, one of the few times drought conditions work in our favor. Laura Leslie live for us this noon. Laura, thanks. This morning, President Biden urged Florida residents to listen to officials as Ian barrels toward the Sunshine State. He kicked off remarks at the White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health with a message of support.
We'll be there to help you clean up and rebuild, to help you get Florida get moving again. And we'll be there at every step of the way. That's my absolute commitment to the people of the state of Florida.
The president also warned the oil and gas industry not to use the storm as an excuse to gouge the American people price-wise on gasoline.
2 people are being treated for injuries after a possible tornado caused by the storm damaged an apartment complex in Delray Beach, Florida. Palm Beach County Fire Rescue was dispatched to the complex around 9:15 last night after reports of a possible tornado strike that left multiple vehicles and buildings damaged. You can see that in this video. Rescuers found damage in 3 of the buildings. 2 patients were taken to a hospital with injuries.
All of a sudden, I felt something and then heard like a train coming right through the house, in this direction. And I started to scream. Because I have a bad leg. It was very, very difficult for me to run.
Authorities said 35 residents were evacuated and taken to the clubhouse. Electricity has been shut down at that complex.
People evacuating from Hurricane Ian will be able to camp at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Officials opened Rock City Campground at the facility at 9 o'clock this morning. Anyone who arrives at the campground will be asked to check in at the Camping World Racing Resort office. Officials say those who camp at the Speedway will have access to bathroom facilities. Talladega Superspeedway and Atlanta Motor Speedway have also announced they are opening their camping facilities for storm evacuees. And we have a lot more to cover on Ian's impacts. In the next 10 minutes, we'll take you inside Hurricane Ian with the hurricane hunters. Then in our next half hour, Ian's impact on gas prices here at home. And remember, be sure to download the WRAL Severe Weather app so you can keep track of the storm as it heads in our direction.
The most experienced team of meteorologists. Weather coverage you can count on.
Here's a look you don't often get inside the storm from one of the important tools meteorologists use in determining a storm's strength and movement. Hurricane hunters flew right into the middle of this storm yesterday from Kessler Air Force Base, Mississippi. This is Ian. The 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron has been flying C-130s into storms since 1944 to collect valuable data.
And happening here in the WRAL Live Center, Hurricane Ian, of course, having a major impact on the travel industry. As we take a live look at RDU International this morning, we checked a little while ago, and many of the cancellations at RDU this noon hour, really from the airports in Florida. All the major airports in South Florida are closed. Miami International, Tampa International, Orlando, all those airports are closed at this noon hour. I want to take a look at the numbers, courtesy of FlightAware. And these are the numbers I want to draw your attention to. Right now at this noon hour, more than 1,100 flights are delayed all across the United States. But this is a big number right here. Cancellations, 2,000 50 flights are canceled all across the United States, many of which are probably likely from those Florida airports. I want to get right back to meteorologist Aimee Wilmoth tracking this very powerful storm and its impact not just in Florida, but here at home, Aimee.
Ken, we actually have some live video out of Port Charlotte, Florida, and this is courtesy of EarthCam. Look at the waves here in Port Charlotte that's close to Fort Myers. Just incredible wave heights here in Port Charlotte. They're really starting to feel the brunt of this storm across the coast of Florida as it nears landfall right now. I want to show you the current wave heights, and right along the shore, this is Port Charlotte, right about here. 14-foot wave heights. That's huge. Major wave heights, major storm surge, and a lot of winds. I've seen a lot of reports already of trees down across parts of Florida and lots of power outages. This is the 12 o'clock advisory update. It's a Category 4 with winds at 155 miles per hour, moving to the northeast at 9 miles per hour. You can clearly see that eye wall and the eye starting to make landfall. This is a look at the current power outages. Look right here in this area. This is more than 100,000 people just in this area alone without power. You go up close to Sarasota and it's close to 100,000 people without power. So already huge winds knocking down trees, and the storm hasn't even completely made landfall yet. So it's just going to continue to get worse. As far as the storm surge watch and warning, we're expecting a storm surge of 12 to 18 feet here across parts of Florida. The worst of it will be close to Fort Myers. As you get up into South Carolina and Georgia, we could have a storm surge of 3 to 5 feet. So this storm is going to impact several states in the coming days, including North Carolina, with some heavy rain in a few spots. It continues to move to the north and east, making landfall here in the next couple of hours, and then it moves back out to sea as a tropical storm as we get to Friday, moving back on land as we get into Friday afternoon, early Saturday, and weakening to a remnant low over western North Carolina on Sunday. So here's a look at the rainfall. In case you missed it, I wanted to show you that we're expecting the rain to arrive a little bit earlier Friday. Rain moving in for the morning commute, especially for the southern half of the viewing area. The rain will be with us likely during lunchtime, and it continues during the evening commute. So once this rain starts Friday, it's just going to continue overnight Friday, continuing into Saturday. Saturday morning will be wet. We could see things start to let up late Saturday, but still some showers around late Saturday. Sunday we'll still have some rain, but I do think the biggest impacts here locally will be felt through the day on Friday and into the first half of Saturday. We do expect some pretty heavy rainfall totals, anywhere from 2 to 3 inches, maybe some isolated pockets of 4 inches. That would most likely happen in our southern counties. For the mountains and for the coast, we could have some higher totals up to 6 inches. So I think we're more likely to see some flooding just to our east and just to our west. Although some isolated flooding is possible here locally, I wouldn't expect it to be widespread. We do have a level 1 risk, and this is for Friday. So some isolated tornadoes, especially as you get closer to the coast. We can't rule that out. So we do have that potential to deal with through the day Friday. But in the meantime, things are quiet here locally. It's beautiful. We have a few clouds out there. It's going to get breezy today. It stays breezy into tomorrow as well. Temperatures are comfortable in the 60s and 70s, cooler compared to yesterday, and it will stay pretty nice all afternoon. High temperatures mainly in the low to mid 70s. Tonight we'll get down to 50. The winds start to pick up even more Thursday. It's windy, rainy mess Friday, and then the rain continues off and on through at least Monday, and then things start to improve here as we get into Tuesday.
Take it to Tampa for a live look right now. You see water on both sides of this highway. No cars. Makes sense there, right? And the surge coming, as you can see, and rain on the camera there. It is picking up about 100 miles from the eye of Ian as you watch WRAL News, available on Hulu and the WRAL app on your TV or streaming device.
Hurricane Ian is expected to make landfall along Florida's southwestern coast today. The powerful hurricane is packing winds up to 155 miles per hour, making it near Category 5 strength. This is a live look this afternoon in Tampa. The National Hurricane Center says Ian is expected to cause life-threatening storm surge, catastrophic winds, and flooding in the Florida peninsula. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says the state has mobilized resources, including the state's National Guard, to help deal with impacts of Hurricane Ian.
Well, the time to prepare or evacuate has run out now, and many have heeded the warnings from government officials to get out or seek shelter. There are a few, though, who are determined to ride out this storm in their homes. NBC's Chris Pallone reports from Tampa, Florida.
We're facing the imminent landfall of Ian in short order here in the southwest part of Florida. The storm is slated to come ashore south of Tampa, where I'm standing right now. All morning long, this area has been battered by heavy rain and heavy winds, and it's only getting more and more intense as the day goes along. The conditions have been getting worse. Over the course of the morning, the storm was clocked at having 155-mile-an-hour winds. That's Category 4, but it's 2 miles an hour less than a Category 5 storm, so it underwent rapid intensification overnight. The National Hurricane Center said that the storm surge in a place like Port Charlotte, south of here, is worse than they predicted. 12 to 18 feet of storm surge now expected in that area. That means it's going to be catastrophic where the storm comes ashore. And then this is going to be a long road. The storm, once it comes ashore, is expected to slow down. It will dump tons of rain. The mayor of Tampa saying this area could still get 20 inches of rain before all is said and done. The storm will continue to dump rain over the central portion of Florida, like Orlando, before going out to the East Coast and causing more storm surge all the way up to Jacksonville. So officials say it's too late to get out. For people who have remained in evacuation zones, it's best for them just to stay home and ride it out and hope for the best. That's the story from Tampa. I'm Chris Pallone, NBC News.
And with Ian making such a big impact on travel and the travel industry in Florida, we wanted to know if it could affect gas prices here at home. WRAL's Lora Lavigne has what experts are saying.
We were just beginning to see the prices consistently drop. Now many people are wondering, could this major storm affect how much we pay here? Today, the national average is up 8 cents higher than a week ago. Here in Apex, you can see it hovering just over that $3 mark. So experts tell us it is highly unlikely Hurricane Ian will have a direct impact on our supply and how much we pay for now. A spokesperson with AAA says the impact will be localized because Florida is not a huge producer or refiner. However, the market could react to the storm in advance by increasing the price just a tad to balance off any potential cutoffs. Spokesperson Tiffany Wright says the chances of a ripple effect here in North Carolina are slim, but it really all depends on how widespread the impact of the storm is.
Anytime there's a natural disaster, anytime there's a chance for refineries to go offline, anytime there's a chance for oil production to be cut, the oil market reacts. When the oil market reacts, we see prices for crude oil go up and gas prices tend to follow.
And she says the biggest takeaway is, of course, do not panic buy. That is our worst enemy in regards to how the market reacts to consumer spending. Also, do not rush to go fill up your entire fleet of vehicles because that is what leads to local shortages. Lora Lavigne, WRAL News, Apex.
And happening now in the WRAL Live Center, we continue to track Hurricane Ian. This is a video of the Hillsborough River in Tampa. And in the last 24 hours, officials dropped the water levels in the reservoir about 2 feet ahead of Hurricane Ian making landfall there along the western portion of Florida. Also, here's another piece of video of the impact that Hurricane Ian is already having on the Tampa Bay area. This is the energy from Hurricane Ian pulling all that water away from shore. This is along Bayshore Boulevard, the downtown Tampa area. And at some point, all that water is going to come rushing back. And of course, that's the storm surge that city leaders and forecasters are really concerned about.
Thank you, Ken. And remember, be sure to download the WRAL Severe Weather app so you can keep track of the storm, especially as it heads in our direction.